I didn't notice it at first. That's the part that keeps replaying in my head. The fact that I walked past it for days before I understood something was wrong. I'm standing in my hallway right now, my phone shaking in my hand, watching my dog do that low, uncertain whine he only makes when he's scared but trying not to show it. He's planted his paws against the floor, nails scraping softly, refusing to take another step toward the door at the end of the hall. There's nothing special about it. No strange symbols, no cracks, no smell. Just a door. White paint. Brass handle. Closed, like it's been every night since I moved in. But the moment we get close, he freezes. His ears flatten. His tail tucks so tight it almost disappears, and his eyes lock on the gap beneath the frame like something might blink back at him. I've tried everything. Treats. Toys. Calling his name in that stupid high voice that usually works. He won't budge. If I pull gently on his leash, he trembles and lets out this broken, pleading sound that makes my chest tighten. Once, only once, he growled. Not at me. At the door. That was when I started paying attention. Late at night, when the house settles, I hear faint noises from that end of the hall. Not footsteps. More like movement. A soft shift, as if something inside the room adjusts its weight when I walk past. I told myself it was pipes, or the house cooling, or my imagination filling in gaps it shouldn't. But my dog heard it too. His head snapped up. His eyes tracked the sound precisely, right to that door. Animals know things. Everyone says that. They sense earthquakes before they happen, smell sickness, react to danger we can't see. There's a rule there, one I didn't know yet, or maybe didn't want to admit. If something scares an animal this badly, you're already late to the problem. I wish I'd trusted that instinct sooner. Because before the door frightened him, before the hallway felt wrong, before I started sleeping with lights on, this house was just a house. Quiet, ordinary, safe. Before any of this, my evenings followed a rhythm so predictable I barely noticed it. I'd get home around the same time every night, kick my shoes off by the door, and listen to my dog sprint across the living room like I'd been gone for years instead of hours. He'd skid on the hardwood, nails clicking, tail whipping hard enough to knock into furniture. It always made me laugh. Still does, when I think about it. We'd go for our walk just before sunset. Same route. Same smells he insisted on checking like they were breaking news. I'd scroll through my phone while he conducted whatever investigation dogs think they're conducting, occasionally tugging the leash when he took too long. Nothing exciting ever happened. That was the comfort of it. Routine is supposed to make you feel safe. The house helped with that. It wasn't new, but it was solid. Warm lighting, soft corners, familiar creaks that only ever meant the floor settling. Every sound had an explanation if you cared enough to look for one. I didn't. I never had to. Even the hallway, the one everyone asks about now, was just a hallway. Bedrooms on one side, bathroom on the other, and that door at the end leading to what I thought of as the spare room. Storage. Old boxes. Nothing worth thinking about. My dog never had a problem with it back then. He'd follow me everywhere, nails tapping behind me like an echo. If I went to grab laundry, he came too. If I paced while on the phone, he matched every step. Dogs don't like closed doors much, and he was no exception. He'd nose them open, peek inside, then lose interest and wander off. That's why it took so long for me to notice the change. At first, it was small things. He lingered at the living room entrance instead of following me down the hall. He'd sit and watch, head tilted, as if deciding whether it was worth the effort. I joked that he was getting lazy, older, smarter about conserving energy. Sometimes he'd start down the hallway, then stop abruptly, ears twitching, and turn back without explanation. I didn't push it. Why would I? Houses develop quirks. Pets do too. You learn to live around them. But one evening, after dinner, I grabbed his leash and said the word he never ignores. He stood up instantly, excited, ready, then stopped cold at the mouth of the hallway. He stared down it like it had offended him, like it had done something. No amount of coaxing worked. He wouldn't cross that threshold. That was the first time the hallway felt longer than it should have. After that night, I started paying attention in a way I hadn't before. Not because I believed anything was wrong, at least not consciously, but because once you notice a break in routine, it's hard to stop seeing the cracks spread. The hallway felt colder. That was the first thing I told myself. Old houses have drafts, especially at night, especially when the temperature drops. Still, I'd step out of the living room and feel it immediately, like I'd crossed an invisible line. The air near the door had weight to it, a stale chill that didn't move no matter how long the heater ran. Everywhere else was fine. Just that stretch of hallway. Just that door. Small things shifted when I wasn't looking. A shoe rack I knew I'd pushed flush against the wall angled out slightly the next morning. A picture frame tilted, then straightened itself between checks, as if embarrassed to be caught. Once, I found the door itself not quite closed, even though I was certain I'd shut it. Not open. Never open. Just enough space to notice. I blamed myself. Fatigue. Muscle memory filling in gaps that weren't real. When you live alone, there's no one to correct you. The noises were harder to dismiss. Nothing dramatic. No footsteps. No voices. Just faint sounds that hovered at the edge of perception. A soft scrape, like fabric dragging across carpet. A gentle thump, spaced too evenly to be the house settling. If I stopped and listened, it stopped too. The silence afterward felt deliberate, like something holding its breath. My dog noticed before I did. His hesitation turned into refusal. He'd plant his feet and lean back when I tried to guide him down the hall, nails scraping for traction. The whining started soon after. Low, distressed sounds that crawled out of his throat without warning. Once, late at night, he woke me up growling, deep and steady, his eyes locked on the hallway entrance. I stood there in the dark, heart racing, staring at nothing. No movement, no shadows I could point to, just the sense that the space beyond that door was listening. Logic told me I was projecting. Animals pick up on stress. Dogs react to subtle cues. If I was tense, he'd be tense too. That explanation worked until the night he backed away from the hallway with his hackles raised, teeth bared at empty air. He didn't look at the door. He looked past it. And for the first time, I wondered if he wasn't afraid of the door at all, but of whatever stood quietly on the other side, waiting to be noticed. Once I admitted it wasn't a one-off, I couldn't stop tracking it. The pattern was simple, cruelly consistent. Every single time we passed that stretch of hallway, my dog slowed. 3 steps away, his ears went back. 2 steps away, his body stiffened. 1 step away, he stopped completely, like an invisible wall had dropped in front of him. No amount of coaxing worked. Treats stayed uneaten on the floor. His leash went slack as he leaned away, eyes fixed on that door with an intensity I'd never seen before. It didn't matter what time it was. Morning light didn't help. Lamps didn't help. Guests didn't help. If the door was there, and it always was, his reaction was the same. Predictable. Repeatable. That consistency scared me more than anything else. Fear caused by imagination wobbles. This didn't. Other things began lining up too. My phone signal dropped every time I stood near the door, calls cutting out mid-sentence. The hallway light dimmed when I walked past, then brightened again once I moved away. Once, I watched the smart thermostat blink and reset itself the moment I crossed that invisible boundary. Electronics misbehave. I know that, but they misbehaved only there. I started testing it, telling myself it was curiosity, not fear. I marked the floor with tape, noting where my dog stopped each time. The distance never changed. I waved my hand across that space like I was checking for heat over a fire. Sometimes the air felt heavier, denser, like pushing against resistance. Sometimes it felt normal, which was worse. Inconsistency would have been comforting. I set up a cheap camera at the end of the hall, aimed directly at the door. Watching the live feed from the couch felt ridiculous at first. Nothing happened. Hours passed. Then, around 2 a.m., the image stuttered. Not froze, stuttered, like frames were being skipped. The hallway darkened slightly, shadows stretching in a way that didn't match the lighting. When I checked the footage later, that section was corrupted. Just that section. My dog refused to be in the room when the camera was on. That should have been my cue to stop. Instead, I pushed further. Motion sensors, audio recording apps. I wanted data, something concrete to pin this on. The sensors triggered constantly when pointed at the door, even when nothing moved. Audio picked up low-frequency hums I couldn't hear, a sound like distant breathing slowed down and flattened. The worst part was how the house responded to my attention. The more I tested, the more noticeable everything became. Lights flickered longer. Shadows lingered in my peripheral vision. Once, as I stood inches from the door, I felt a sudden rush of cold air brush past my ankles, sharp enough to make me gasp. The door didn't move. No handle turned. No hinges creaked. Just that breath of cold, deliberate and sudden, like a response. My dog bolted, nails scrambling on hardwood, disappearing into the bedroom and refusing to come out for hours. I stood there alone, heart pounding, staring at the door as the hallway light dimmed around me. That was the moment it stopped feeling passive. Whatever was tied to that door wasn't just there. It was reacting. You don't get a handbook for this kind of thing. No warning label. No checklist taped to the fridge telling you how to survive a door your dog refuses to acknowledge. You learn the rules the way people always do, by making mistakes and paying attention to what doesn't go wrong afterward. Rule 1 came fast. Never force him near it. The first time I tried, tugging gently on his leash, his reaction wasn't fear anymore. It was panic. Full body resistance, teeth bared, a sound tearing out of his throat that didn't sound like it belonged to him. I let go immediately. I still hear that noise sometimes when the house is quiet. Rule 2 followed naturally. Don't linger. Passing the door quickly was tolerated. Standing near it wasn't. The longer I stayed, the heavier the air felt, like I was holding my breath without realizing it. I learned to keep my eyes forward, my steps steady, pretending it was just another stretch of hallway. Pretending mattered. Rule 3 was harder to explain, even to myself. Don't talk about it out loud. The one time I tried to joke about it with a friend. Yeah, my dog thinks my hallway's haunted. The lights flickered hard enough to pop a bulb. My friend laughed. I didn't. After that, I stopped bringing it up. Silence felt safer. If you're listening to this and thinking I sound paranoid, good. That means you're still on the safe side of it. Because here's the thing no one tells you. Animals don't get curious about the wrong things. They don't push boundaries just to see what happens. If something scares them this consistently, it's not because they misunderstand it. It's because they understand it better than we ever will. I started treating the rules like superstition, even though I didn't believe in superstition before. No staring. No testing after midnight. No cameras running overnight. And most importantly, no approaching the door alone. That last one wasn't written anywhere, but it felt implied, like a sentence left unfinished on purpose. Every rule gave me the illusion of control. Follow them, and nothing escalated. Break them, and the house reminded me I wasn't in charge. That balance lulled me into thinking I could manage it, like a wild animal you never touch, but learn to live around. I'm telling you this because if you ever notice your pet refusing a space for no obvious reason, don't challenge it. Don't laugh it off. Don't prove you're braver than instinct. Curiosity is what gets noticed. I broke the last rule on a night when my dog was already asleep, curled tight and dreaming. I told myself it didn't count if he wasn't there to see it. I walked down the hallway alone, and the door noticed. I didn't go looking for confirmation. That's important. I wasn't trying to prove anything or feed some late-night paranoia spiral. I just wanted reassurance. Someone else admitting their dog hated a hallway for no reason, or that cat sometimes stared at nothing. Something normal. Something dismissible. Instead, I found threads that ended abruptly. It started with a search I barely remember typing. Dog refuses to go near door. Harmless. Common. At first, the results were what you'd expect. Training forums, vet advice, people blaming smells or past trauma. I was almost relieved. Then I noticed how often certain replies went unanswered, how often posts were edited days later with vague updates like, "We moved the furniture," or "Issue resolved," without explanation. One post stuck with me. A guy described his German Shepherd planting its feet in front of a basement door, refusing to move, growling at nothing. He joked about it at first. Then, halfway through the thread, his tone changed. He wrote about cold air leaking from the frame, about hearing something shift behind the door at night. His last update was one sentence long. "Please stop telling me to open it." He never posted again. Another story came from a neighborhood forum, buried deep in comments. A woman mentioned her dog tearing free from its collar to avoid a laundry room. Someone replied, asking what time it happened. She answered, "No follow-up." Her account went inactive 2 weeks later. What scared me wasn't the similarities. It was the way people stopped writing. Mid-thought, mid-explanation. Like the moment they understood what was happening was the moment they chose silence or couldn't continue. A few replies warned against curiosity outright. If your animal won't cross it, don't. Pay attention to what notices you first. No explanations, just warnings. I even asked around locally, casually, pretending it was just small talk. A neighbor 2 houses down went quiet when I mentioned dogs indoors. He said his old lab used to bark at a closet that no longer existed. He said they sealed it up after an accident. He didn't say what kind. That was the worst part, relief. Knowing I wasn't alone made it real in a way I couldn't undo. This wasn't my house. It wasn't my dog. It was a pattern, a recurring mistake people made when they assumed familiarity meant safety. If you're hearing this and thinking about searching your own experiences, be careful how deep you go. Patterns don't stay abstract once you recognize them. They start recognizing you back. I closed every tab, logged out of every forum, and sat in the dark for a long time, listening to my dog breathe. Avoidance wasn't working anymore. Ignoring it hadn't made it go away. If others had disappeared by pretending the door didn't matter, I wasn't going to make the same mistake. That night, I decided to watch it instead. I told myself I was just being thorough, that if I understood the house, I could understand the door. Knowledge felt like armor then, something solid I could put between myself and whatever had started to feel too intentional to ignore. The house wasn't old by any dramatic standard. Built in the late 90s, suburban, forgettable. That should have been comforting. Instead, it made what I found harder to explain. I started with public records, property listings, renovation permits. Normal stuff at first, paint updates, a roof repair, a minor electrical inspection. Then I noticed gaps, years where nothing was filed. No sales, no updates, no complaints. The house simply went quiet on paper. A single permit from 12 years ago stood out. Interior ceiling, non-structural. No details. No follow-up inspection. The address matched my house. The floor plan diagram attached was grainy, but I stared at it until my eyes hurt. The hallway was there. The rooms were there. But where my door was now, there had been something else before. A narrow space, unlabeled, shaded darker than the rest. I found the previous owner's name and went looking. Social media turned up nothing current. Obituaries did. He hadn't died in the house. Officially. The article said he'd been found in his car, parked 3 streets away, cause of death ruled an accident. But the comments told a different story. Neighbors mentioned odd behavior beforehand. Paranoia, complaints about drafts, about his dog refusing to enter the house at night. One comment claimed the dog had gone missing weeks before his death. That's when my own dog started whining behind me. I hadn't heard him move. He was standing at the end of the hallway, staring toward the door, body low, ears flat, tail tucked so tightly it looked painful. The timing felt deliberate, like punctuation. I kept digging. Forums, archived listings, even a scanned copy of a handwritten note someone claimed to have found during a remodel years ago. Do not reopen what was closed for a reason. No context, no name, just that sentence. Every story I found shared the same detail. Animals reacted first. Dogs refused rooms. Cats hissed at empty corners. And every time, the humans learned too late that sealing a space didn't remove what noticed you there. It just taught it patience. The door hadn't appeared randomly. It wasn't a flaw or a coincidence. It was a compromise. Someone before me had tried to contain something by pretending it was just architecture. A wall, a door, a boundary. But boundaries only work if both sides agree. I finally understood why my dog wouldn't go near it. He wasn't afraid of the door. He was afraid of what still recognized that space is open. And the worst part was realizing this. Whatever it was, it hadn't left when the room was sealed. It had stayed. I didn't plan to go in all at once. That's the lie I still catch myself telling. The truth is, once I knew the door had a history, once I understood it wasn't just a door anymore, curiosity stopped feeling optional. It felt required, like leaving a sentence unfinished in your head that you can't stop rereading. My dog knew before I did. The moment I reached for the handle, he let out a low sound I'd never heard from him before. Not a bark, not a growl, something closer to a warning dragged out of his chest. He planted himself behind me, nails scraping the floor as if trying to pull himself backward without turning away. I told him it was fine. I told myself the same thing. The door opened too easily. The temperature changed immediately, like I'd stepped into the open door of a freezer. My breath fogged, even though the rest of the house was warm. The light inside flickered once, twice, then settled into a dim, uneven glow that felt wrong for a room that size. It smelled old. Not mold or dust, something flatter. Stale, like air that hadn't moved in years. I took one step inside. My dog refused to cross the threshold. His body locked, every muscle rigid, eyes fixed on the space around my ankles instead of my face. The room was small, smaller than it should have been. The walls felt closer than the measurements in my head allowed, like the space had been folded inward. There was no furniture, no windows, just scuffed flooring and faint marks on the walls that looked like they'd been cleaned repeatedly, never fully erased. That's when the sound started. At first, it was just pressure, a faint ringing in my ears, like standing up too fast. Then whispers, too quiet to be words, but rhythmic, patterned, not random noise, intentional. They didn't come from one direction. They came from everywhere at once, as if the room itself was exhaling thoughts it didn't want to keep inside anymore. The shadows didn't match the light. They stretched where nothing blocked them, shifted when I didn't move. One slid slowly across the far wall, paused, then angled toward me like it had noticed something new. I backed up a step. The shadows followed. My phone vibrated in my pocket. No notification, just a brief buzz, like it was checking to see if it still existed. When I pulled it out, the screen dimmed on its own, reflection showing my face, and behind it, something darker, standing too close. The whispers grew louder when I focused on them. That's when I understood the rule I'd missed. It wasn't about entering. It wasn't even about fear. It was about attention. The room reacted to my focus. When I stared at a corner, something shifted there. When I held my breath, the air pressed back. When I thought about leaving, the floor creaked softly, like disappointment. I took another step inside before I realized what I was doing. The door closed behind me. Not slammed, not violently, just finished closing. And the moment it latched, the room changed its tone. The whispers stopped pretending to be background noise. Something moved, deliberate and close, and for the first time, it felt like the room wasn't just reacting anymore. It was responding to me. I didn't scream. I didn't run. I stood there because my body understood something my brain was still catching up to. Panic would only make it faster. The room had already proven it reacted to attention, to intention, to choice. Any sudden move felt like a confession. I tried recording first. It felt instinctual, like proof might protect me. My phone camera opened. The screen lagged, then stabilized. The image didn't match what I was seeing. The walls on the screen bowed inward, breathing slightly, like ribs expanding and collapsing. The shadows weren't visible at all. Instead, there were dark gaps where they should have been, holes in the image that the camera refused to fill. The moment I focused on the screen, the floor creaked beneath my feet. Not randomly, directly. One slow groan, right under me, as if the room was reminding me where I stood. "Okay," I said out loud, because silence felt worse. "I see you." The lights dimmed in response. Not off, just lower, like approval. I took a step back toward the door. The air thickened. My ears popped painfully, pressure building as if I'd gone underwater. The whispers returned, clearer now, layered voices overlapping each other in a way that made my teeth ache. Still no words, just intent, expectation. I realized then that the room wasn't trying to scare me. It was trying to teach me. Every action triggered a reaction. When I stared too long, the shadows moved closer. When I avoided looking, the temperature dropped sharply, punishment for disinterest. When I whispered to myself, the room echoed the sound back seconds later, warped, stretched, wrong. The rules weren't written anywhere. They were enforced. I tested defiance carefully. I turned my back on the far wall and closed my eyes for exactly 1 second. The floor groaned again, louder this time, and something brushed the back of my neck. Not a touch, but the sensation of proximity, like standing too close to a heat source you can't see. I understood then what it wanted. Not fear, not obedience, participation. The room needed acknowledgement to exist fully. Attention sustained it. Curiosity fed it. Resistance made it angry, but ignorance weakened it. That was the balance. That was the trap. Anyone who noticed it too much stayed. Anyone who ignored it completely disappeared from the records, from memory, from whatever system tracked these things. My phone buzzed again. This time, there was a notification. No app name, no icon, just text. Stay assigned. I laughed, sharp and shaky, because the alternative was screaming. Assigned to what? I asked the room. My voice sounded smaller than it should have. The answer came through motion. The door handle turned slightly, just enough to remind me it existed. The shadows pulled back, giving me space. The pressure eased. The room was offering something in return. Safety, maybe. Time. Survival with conditions. I thought about my dog waiting on the other side of that door, refusing to move. I thought about the stories I'd read, the missing pets, the posts that stopped mid-sentence. I thought about how easy it would be to leave if I agreed to something. "I won't bring anyone else in," I said slowly. "I won't talk about you. I'll pretend you're just a door." The lights flickered, uncertain. "And I won't ignore you completely," I added. "I'll check. Just enough." The room settled. The whispers faded into a low hum, like a machine idling. The pressure released fully, and the door clicked open behind me, gentle as an invitation instead of an escape. I didn't know if I'd won. I knew I'd agreed. As I stepped backward into the hallway, the door remained open, watching, and I understood that compliance didn't mean the end of it. It meant continuation. And for now, that was the price of staying. Life didn't reset after that night. It just continued. The house still stood. The door stayed exactly where it had always been. No scorch marks, no broken hinges, no visible proof that anything had happened at all. If you walked in now, you'd think it was just another quiet home with creaky floors and bad insulation. But my dog knew better. He refuses to go near that door. Not cautiously, not hesitantly. He won't even look at it. If we're walking down the hallway and he realizes we're headed in that direction, his paws lock in place like they've been nailed to the floor. He whines softly, low and urgent, and pulls back with a strength that surprises me every time. Treats don't work. Commands don't work. His eyes never leave the space beneath the doorframe, as if something might spill out if he looks away. I stopped trying to make him cross it. I stopped crossing it myself, too, at least most days. The house still functions. The lights work. The plumbing behaves. Friends come over and comment on how cozy the place feels. I laugh at the right moments, make coffee, keep conversations away from the hallway. I've learned how to angle my body so I never have to face the door directly. I've learned how to walk past without looking down. I've learned how to pretend that avoidance is a choice, not a rule. At night, it's harder. I wake up at exact times without meaning to. My sleep breaks in shallow pieces, like I'm listening for something even when nothing happens. Sometimes I swear I hear the faint hum again, just on the edge of hearing, like an appliance left running in another room. When that happens, I don't get up. I don't investigate. I stare at the ceiling and wait for morning. I check the door every day, not opening it, just confirming it's still closed, still quiet, still behaving. That's the agreement, I think. Mutual distance, controlled awareness. Enough attention to acknowledge it exists, not enough to invite it closer. I don't know what would happen if I broke that balance again. I don't want to know. My dog sleeps lighter now. He positions himself between me and the hallway every night, back pressed to my legs, ears twitching at sounds I can't hear. When I move, he lifts his head instantly, ready, guarding, warning. I used to think survival meant resolution. That if you lived through something like this, it would end cleanly, like a story with a lesson and a period at the end. This isn't like that. The house still feels normal. I'm the part that changed. And that's why I'm telling you this now, before you dismiss the small things, before you convince yourself that fear without proof doesn't count. Because the door hasn't moved, and he still won't go near it. I didn't tell you this story to scare you. Not exactly. Fear fades too quickly, and that's not what keeps you alive. I'm telling you because once you notice a pattern like this, it's hard to ignore how common it really is. Think about it. Every house has spaces no one likes. Doors that stay shut. Corners that feel heavier at night. Rooms your pets refuse to enter no matter how much you coax them. We laugh it off. Say animals are weird. Say houses settle. Say our brains look for meaning where there isn't any. That's what I said too. What bothers me now is how many stories sound the same once you start listening. Different cities, different houses, same details. A dog that freezes, a cat that hisses at empty air, a door that never quite feels like part of the rest of the house, posts that trail off mid-sentence, comments from people who stop replying altogether. Some of them thought ignoring it was enough. Some of them tried to confront it. A few were sure it was nothing at all. I don't know which choice is safest. I only know which ones don't work. Curiosity is the dangerous part. Attention is the currency. Once something realizes it's being noticed, it doesn't need to chase you. It just waits for you to come closer on your own. That's how it stays quiet. That's how it lasts. If you're listening to this and thinking about a door in your own place right now, that's not coincidence. If your pet just lifted its head, or shifted closer to you, or refused to follow you down a hallway before, Don't brush that off. Animals don't need explanations. They only need instincts. I won't tell you where my door is anymore. I won't describe it again. That feels like inviting questions I don't want answered. What I will say is this: pay attention to what avoids certain places. Pay attention to what watches when you're not looking. And if you ever find yourself standing in front of a door, wondering why it suddenly feels wrong, don't try to prove yourself brave. Next time your dog stops at a door and won't go near it, look twice, or you may already be listed.